Welcome back, everybody. My name is Reverend Catherine Chappie, and I am an SAI board member. So happy to be here and facilitating for our supporting STE experiencers panel. And the first person that I'd like to introduce is Dr. Francis Liu. He is the Luke and Grace Kim Professor in Cultural Psychiatry, Emeritus at the University of California, Davis, as a Distinguished Life Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association. Dr. Liu has contributed to the areas of cultural psychiatry, including the interface with religion and spirituality, psychiatric education, diversity and inclusion, and psychiatry and film. In 1994, he and two colleagues successfully advocated for religious or spiritual problem to be included in the DSM-4. APA awarded him special presidential commendations in both 2002 and 2016 for his contributions to cultural psychiatry. And I'd also like to say that Dr. Liu has been recognized for his groundbreaking work on spiritual emergence and is an honoree in our Spiritual Awakenings International Circle of Honor.
Thank you very much for inviting me to present here to all of you, and I'm very conscious of the time, so I will share my screen. So I will be speaking today about a new category in the DSM-5 TR that was just approved in December of 2024, entitled Moral, Religious, or Spiritual Problem. I have no disclosures. There's my email address should you want to correspond with me or ask any questions after today. My big goal today, the big picture, is how to categorize distressing STEs in the American Psychiatric Association DSM-5 TR, which is a dictionary of mental disorders, so as to make an accurate diagnosis, improve treatment plans, and enhance dialogue between clients and providers. I'll start with a little preface, a comparison between 1993 and 2021. And the kind of the overall picture here is the DSM has evolved from 30 years ago, the DSM-4 to the DSM-5 to the DSM-5 TR. And there's been an overarching strategy that I and other colleagues have had, and that is to include religious or spiritual issues under the umbrella concept of cultural issues, so as to employ two assessment tools: the outline for cultural formulation that was introduced in the DSM-4 and revised for the 5 and the 5 TR, and also the cultural formulation interview that came in the 5 and is unchanged in the TR. Now, because of time, I'm not going to go over all of that. I would suggest that you take a look at the 2021 conference video in which I presented on all of this information, including those two assessment tools, which I think are really very helpful. So my little comparison here is back in 1993, the psychiatrist Scott Peck wrote a very famous book called The Road Less Traveled, and then he came out with a subsequent one. In the epilogue, he presented the transcript of his 1992 annual meeting lecture, where he said that American psychiatry his neglect of spirituality has led to 5 broad areas of failure: occasional devastating misdiagnosis, not infrequent mistreatment, inadequate research and theory, an increasingly poor reputation, a limitation of the psychiatrist's own personal development, and taken further, these failures are so destructive to psychiatry that the predicament can properly be called grave. In comparison, in April of 2021, the American Psychiatric Association Ethics Committee put out a resource document to help psychiatrists on this whole issue of the interface of religion, spirituality, and psychiatric practice, in which they say it is important for psychiatrists to explore and understand the religious and spiritual values of their patients as part of their assessment and treatment. When possible and appropriate, psychiatrists may incorporate their patients' religious and spiritual values into treatment, just as they would their patients' other values. And psychiatrists are encouraged to consider and remain open-minded about their patients' preferences for non-harmful but spiritually valuable practices or treatments. And you could access this document if you just simply Google APA Psychiatry Religion. You'll come right to it at the very top. And I really would urge that you take a look at this document. This came out from the Committee on Ethics. Now, just as a starting point, in 1994, there was really a revolution in that for the first time, culture was even considered in the diagnostic manual. And so the new category of religious or spiritual problem was introduced, and also the outline for cultural formulation. And in the introduction to the DSM, there is this statement that diagnostic assessment can be challenging when a clinician from one ethnic or cultural group uses the DSM to evaluate individuals from a different cultural group. A clinician who's unfamiliar with the nuances of the individual's cultural frame of reference may incorrectly judge as psychopathologies those normal variations in behavior, beliefs, or experiences. And it's hoped that these new attention to cultural issues will help clinicians reduce the possible effect of unintended bias stemming from the clinician's own cultural background. And of course, these biases could occur across many different parameters, but certainly religion and spirituality has been marginalized by psychiatry going back to Freud. Now, in this, while the bulk of the DSM consists of mental disorders, there is this section called the other conditions that may be a focus of clinical attention. So way back 30 years ago, it was already stated that you could have, these are not mental disorders, and you could have a problem by itself, or an unrelated mental disorder and a problem, or a related mental disorder and a problem sufficiently severe to warrant independent clinical attention. So David Lukoff, Robert Turner, and myself did get this into the DSM. As you can see, these are distressing experiences, and that's really important. These are distressing experiences that involve loss or questioning of faith, problems associated with conversion to a new faith, or questioning of other spiritual values. Now, in our original proposal, we specifically proposed that mystical experience or near-death experience that are distressing be included, but this was not included in the final DSM. And the rationale here was that we wanted to reduce iatrogenic harm from misdiagnosis of spiritual problems as signs or symptoms of a mental disorder, and to improve treatment, stimulate research, and training. Now, in 2010, we did propose a revision which included experiences such as the STEs that we now know about of mystical experience, near death, and so on, that are distressing. We did propose this to the DSM, but unfortunately, in the DSM-5 and in the TR, this remained unchanged. And the work of Ken Pargament and Julie Exine on religious and spiritual struggles in their 2021 book, I think helps to give examples of experiences that would fit into this category. And so, as you can see, they speak about struggles with the divine, struggles with doubt, interpersonal struggles with evil, with ultimate meaning, and moral struggles. Now, this led, and also a whole team had made a proposal to the DSM steering committee in late 2023, which was accepted in March of 2024, to add well, no, I should go back to the DSM-5 TR. This is the introduction to the section, and these have now been renamed Z codes instead of V codes. And that why should we record them or have them part of the diagnosis? If it plays a role, this was added, what's in yellow, if it plays a role in the initiation or exacerbation of a mental disorder, or if it constitutes a problem that should be considered in the overall management plan. As you can see at the top, that these are conditions or problems that may be a focus of clinical attention or affect the diagnosis, course, prognosis, or treatment of a mental disorder. But these are not mental disorders by themselves. So this was the change that was accepted by the DSM steering committee and ratified by the board in December of last year, adding this new category called morals, problems that include experiences that disrupts one's understanding of right and wrong or sense of goodness of oneself or others or institutions. So this is the new name for this category. The remainder of the definition is exactly the same. And so what are moral problems? There's a whole body of literature on this, stems from moral dilemma, moral distress, and then more severe would be moral injury, emotional distress that arises when an individual either perpetrates, witnesses, or experiences an act that violates their conscience such that they believe they have betrayed their core values or that their core values have been betrayed by another, especially in high-stakes environment. So this was first reported in veterans and then healthcare providers, especially during COVID, and first responders. And the Veterans Affairs have looked into this, and this is their definition: the psychological, social, spiritual impact of actions that violate a person's core moral values and expectations. So these are my last two slides, I believe. What's the relationship with distressing STEs? Distressing STEs should be diagnosed as moral, religious, or spiritual problems alone, or moral, religious, spiritual problems with a mental disorder. That is a possibility in my way of thinking about things, is that, and I think that would really help clarify the discussion. And undoubtedly, as discussed in this conference, some distressing STEs are misdiagnosed as signs and symptoms of a mental disorder. And here are speculations for further research that some distressing STEs are misdiagnosed as a mental disorder, and that may lead to moral distress and moral injury. And another speculation is that some moral distress, moral injury experiences may lead to an STE with or without distress. Thank you for your attention.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for that presentation. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of feedback and questions later on. So I want to introduce our next speaker, and her name is Wendy Rose Williams. She's a past life energy healer, and she helps people release the energy that no longer serves them, including chronic physical and emotional pain, anxiety, depression, and stuck energy. Sorry about that. Releasing this energy allows you to live in a happier, healthier life. Wendy had 2 NDEs while pregnant. She met her angels for the first time when an aorta burst while home alone and again before surgery. Meeting the soulmate Wendy contracted with to wake her up spiritually led her to Michael Newton's Journey of Souls. These events in combination triggered a profound spiritual awakening. So with that, I'd like to introduce Wendy Rose Williams.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here for how to stop haunting yourself and heal that past life energy. So let me share my screen with you. There we go. All right. In February of 1990, I had a profound spiritually transformative experience that began as a dream. I was a newlywed. We had the good fortune to purchase this Colonial in Boxford, Massachusetts, so about an hour north of Boston. And what happened in the dream that became a fully awakening experience was I was seeing this heartbroken young woman. I could tell she was from Colonial American times, that distinctive little white kerchief and white apron that she was wearing. And the house had just fallen away, and she kept climbing up this rock and looking toward the east. She was just so confused and yearning and just waiting for her beloved to come, but he wasn't coming. So she didn't know what to do. So I tried to connect with her. I tried to help her, but I was not spiritually awake in 1990. I didn't have the concept of how do you help a ghost? How do you help a ghost get to the light? So this experience continued several times a week, the entire time we lived in the home. What did help me was we had 3 different guests stay with us. When I checked with them, the next morning after the first night's sleep, how'd you sleep? Do you need any more blankets or towels? And each of them took me aside, and without me having mentioned anything about the experience I was having, they said, Wendy, did you know you've got this heartbroken young Colonial American ghost on the property, and she doesn't know what to do because she's waiting for her beloved and he's not coming. So that really helped me to know that someone else was experiencing this too. We relocated to Seattle from the Boston area in June of 1993. Again, I would have loved to have helped my ghost before I moved, but I just didn't know what to do. So honestly, I just tried to forget about it as one of the life's mysteries that I didn't know how to solve. 20 years later, in February of 2013, I was now awake spiritually. And a good friend in the Seattle area told me, she called me on the phone and she said, I've been having a really interesting experience the last few days that directly involves you. So let me tell you what's going on. And I could hear my guides clearly by then, and they were just saying deep truth that you're ready for it now. You're going to understand it now and know what to do. She told me she'd gone to the bookstore to purchase the latest Brian Weiss title, and instead a book fell off the bookshelf onto her feet. And when it was called Sacred Spaces, when she picked it up and tried to put it back, she said it was like it was glued to her hands. So she knew she was meant to purchase it. She got home with it, still puzzled why, and skimmed through the chapters. And she read the chapter on how to clear your home of a ghost. Again, she thought that was puzzling. She's telling me on the phone. And then a few nights later, she found out why. Her dog woke her up in the middle of the night. She's trying to get the dog outside into the yard without waking up her family. And instead of going in the backyard, the dog darts into the family room and just starts barking and barking and looking up at the ceiling. So she's trying to quiet the dog and looking up thinking, oh gosh, should a bat get in the house? Is there a bird in the house? And instead, she said there was this heartbroken specter just flying around the ceiling. And she felt like she almost got sucked into the heartbreak. It was so profound. And I knew what she was going to say just at the moment she said it. And she said, Wendy, that ghost that I had so much trouble clearing, it's you, and it's your past life from when we were at Plymouth together. So at that point, we just start, and we hadn't been aware of that, but it was breaking through clearly, and we just started finishing each other's sentences, reminiscing about that life. We had both come over on separate voyages from London, lived next door to each other, best friends for a lifetime, and worked together in the trading post. I discovered over time, over the next few weeks, as I'm trying to help this ghost who turns out to be me and still trying to wrap my head around that, I learned that my name had been Anne Warren Little, and was one of Richard Warren's 5 daughters. Richard Warren was one of the original first comers to Plymouth, came over on the Mayflower in 1620, then sent for his wife and children a few years later. And I had died in King Philip's War, a sudden violent death in 1676 after a lifetime at Plymouth. And what was really helping me release this life was getting these past life sketches. That was such an honor that an intuitive artist drew this series of 4 sketches from my lifetime there. The next huge breakthrough was I had dinner with my former boyfriend who'd woken me up spiritually a few years ago based on our soul contract. And as I was telling him, I hadn't seen him in several months, and I was telling him about this experience and remembering so much of traveling over via one of those difficult sea voyages, which took several months. And he said, "Oh my goodness, how interesting. I know I've been a sea captain, a ship's master many times." Right at that moment, my guides came in again really strongly and said, "There it is. This is the crux of the matter." And what I realized was in that lifetime as Anne, I had recognized him. He was the sea captain that brought me over in 1623. And I recognized, young, impressionable girl, 12 years old. And I'm thinking, there he is. There's my soulmate. There's the man I love. I wonder what's gonna happen for us in this lifetime. And I'm looking forward to it. We then, in that lifetime, had this clandestine relationship over the next 6 or 7 years, because he would look for me each time he came back to Plymouth, and was bringing supplies, bringing more passengers. And the last thing he ever said to me, I was in my late teens. I'm expecting him to ask for my hand in marriage. And instead, what he says is "Wait for me. You're so very special to me." And then, boom, I never see him again. I don't know what happens to him. So he ghosted me. And there's no closure to it. And there's just this yearning. And I never knew in that lifetime that he was married. He had children. He was never available, but I don't know it. So what happened next was, and here's 2 more sketches that were really important and just were helping me resolve this energy. My best friend in this lifetime who told me my ghost was in her house. And this is what she looked like back then in the 1600s. And here's my spurned suitor from that lifetime, the gentleman I turned down his offer of marriage. That energy goes forward to today because it's unfulfilled. He became my husband in this lifetime. So again, just the privilege of having these sketches was really helping me release the energy. What else did I need to do to be able to do this soul retrieval from 300 plus years ago, and to be able to get that aspect of myself, that fractal of my soul back up to the light? I did a past life regression. It was tremendous. I spoke for several hours as Anne Warren Little. It's incredible detail. So much detail came through from her perspective and her wanting to be heard that I wrote it as a book. And I discovered that about 20 people in my life now were with me at Plymouth. And it's unusual to incarnate with so many people from any given lifetime, but I feel it's because it was to help me clean up this ghosting energy. The next thing that happened that really was starting to clear it, I asked my former boyfriend in this lifetime who woke me up spiritually and had been that sea captain back in the 1600s. I asked him if he'd be willing to do a ceremony with me to get Anne to go to the light, since we were both involved in what had caused the ghosting. And he kindly, readily agreed. So we were doing that. The energy was just palpable, that you could feel four of us in the room, our past life selves also. And I could see and sense all the light. We were telling Anne about the marvelous welcome home party, and she was going up and up and up to the light. But when he heard party, he then segued to, oh goodness, I'm hosting my own 60th birthday party next week. Would you like to come? I'm looking daggers at him. I'm like so happy that she's going up to the light. But when I went to that party, because the light just stopped at that point, she just slammed on the brakes and would not go. So when we were at the party a week or so later, I realized why it was perfect and why it needed to happen that way. We were all at a huge round table, 25 or 30 of us in a private room in a restaurant. And he had asked for roasts or toasts in lieu of gifts. And I was the last one to stand up, just the way it went around the table. And when I stood up, what I said was, because I'd meditated on it the day before going to the party, what do I do about this situation? And Anne told me exactly what she wanted to say to William. So I wrote it down as a letter and I read it at the party. And I simply said, Anne can't be here today, and this is what she'd like to say to you as the guest of honor today. And it was double entendre, but of course he got it fully, and just people could sense something important happening. You could have heard a pin drop in the room. He publicly apologized and said, I didn't do right by Anne. I was not in integrity with her, and I want to publicly apologize because she was very special to me. So I just folded up the note and gave it to him. And I could feel the weight of the world coming off my shoulders as this ghost was finally going up to the light. And that night at home, I was able to complete that process. And that soulmate and I, we shared 21 lives together. We needed to master forgiveness. So that was just one of the sticking points. That's part of what can cause a ghost, these excessive emotions, not knowing that they're dead, they don't have a body, being too fixated on the present life. So what can you do if you encounter a ghost and would like to help them cross over? Just take a couple deep breaths, just be in your body, open your heart, connect with them, listen to them. They may be very lonely, very heartbroken, very confused. They may not know that they deserve to go up to the light or how to get there. Just help counsel and uplift them, help them visualize the light. Tell them about this beautiful welcome home party, how much better they're going to feel. Everyone they love is going to be there for them, and that they deserve to go. But realize it's their free will, whether they're going to go or not, and you may need to repeat this process. Get help if needed. My website is wendyrosewilliams.com, and you can, I'll put this in the chat, but you can take a picture with your phone here too. Here's all my contact information. And I want to just conclude with the perfect quote from Ram Dass: we're all just walking each other home. And it may be just as literal in your case as it was, to my surprise, in mine, with needing to walk my own ghost home to the light. So thank you so much. And I look forward to your questions. And let me just stop my share here.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Wendy. That was a beautiful share. And I'm sure we'll have some questions for you at the end. All right. So now we're going to move on to our two speakers. We have Saul Aronovitch and Natalie Broccolini. And they have experienced multiple STEs throughout their lives, which have deeply shaped their path in helping others navigate their own transformative journeys. Through personal understanding and a commitment to compassionate care, Saul and Natalie have supported numerous individuals as they process and integrate their own STEs. Their academic focus is on pastoral thanatology with a specific emphasis on, sorry about that, process of dying before, during, and after the transition. In addition, Saul and Natalie are dedicated to assisting families in understanding and supporting the spiritual and emotional transitions of their loved ones during the end of life process. So I'd like to welcome both of you.
Hi. So my name is Saul Aronovitch,
And I'm Natalie Broccolini.
and we have spent um, many times and many years exploring the the hidden spaces of the soul, where I would say where light and shadow meet, where faith is both comforted but challenged as well. So today we're going to talk about a sacred topic, grief care in an awakening world. This type of grief is not actually tied to a particular loss like you might think, but it's really about a profound ache, a sorrow of touching something so sacred, so divine, but then you return to the struggles of everyday life. This kind of grief is really not really well spoken about, but it is truly and deeply felt. So today we're going to offer a bit of understanding, healing, sacred companionship as we go through this journey. This grief we're not going to fix. Grief can't be fixed, but it can be honored. So we're going to do that today. This type of grief, we don't usually talk about it. It's not even, it's actually difficult to name even, because this experience is so deeply personal and so deeply spiritual, connecting to God, connecting to yourself, connecting to the universe, and all at the same time, whether it's through meditation, an STE, or even just a moment of peace. But then it actually fades. And then what? We feel jarred. We long for more. We feel so empty. You know, this kind of grief is actually, it's something really and truly extraordinary. It comes by the experience, and when the experience goes, the grief sets in. So as a thanatologist, we know that grief isn't always about death. Sometimes it's about meaning, how we've changed, which brings to questions, how do we live now knowing what we've experienced and what we've seen? So STEs are looked at, we can look at them like a door to another world that has just opened up, where we feel whole, we feel loved, we see even more clearly, we're awakened. But then what happens when that door closes? And the colors of daily life seem to fade. Relationships, family, community, these connections seems to just go. And then we grieve. And we grieve not because it wasn't real, but because it actually was. I'll give you an experience. One of my experiences, a really profound one. There was an experience where I felt the marriage, and I saw the marriage between the celestial world and the earth itself. It was as if this marriage was literally in front of God himself. It was it was amazing. It was truly amazing. It was such perfection. The highest state of consciousness I've ever experienced. Absolute bliss, pure peace, abundant love and joy. But then it faded, and I felt like I was ripped in two. This kind of grief for me wasn't a full-on depression, but it was my heart yearning and longing, trying to make sense of something bigger than myself, bigger than anything I've ever experienced. It's our nervous system trying to catch up with its soul. And it gets tired. It feels off. We get thrown off and we miss what we can't even explain. So after coming back from this type of STE or any STE or any type of experience like this, it's as if we're stepping into a smaller room. The world didn't change, but we sure did. Routines, conversations, things that made us seem happy, now they feel dull and distant. And we start questioning ourselves. We start questioning, why are we out of place? Why do we feel out of place? And why isn't our life enough anymore? So we call this reintegration. It's learning to live in the world again after being touched by something so profound. But it is hard. It's like trying to fit into an old outfit. It just doesn't fit anymore. You're you, but now you're a deeper and more awakened you. So this is where the grief sets in. between who you were and who you are becoming. And you know you can't go back. So now we're becoming something new, someone new, carrying what we've seen from this space into our space here. And we're doing all that while at the same time trying not to lose ourselves. The hardest part about all this is that this kind of grief is actually invisible. Most don't see it or understand it because this kind of grief there's no funeral, there's no diagnosis, and there's no kind of loss as we really understand it normally. So how do you tell somebody that you're grieving because you've touched God and then you were stripped and pulled back from that? We can fall into what's called disenfranchised grief, where you receive no support, no acknowledgement. And this kind can lead into a stigmatization, even where you might feel silly or be made to feel silly or ashamed. And then you think you're going crazy. So what do? You keep it inside. But we're here to tell you that it really does matter. It is absolutely real. And even though it's invisible, it is valid. Your pain deserves to be named. Your experience deserves to be honored. And you do not have to carry this alone.
After an awakening, we often feel caught between two realities: the sacred experience we touched and the life we're still living. It could feel like standing with one foot in each world, heaven in one hand and laundry in the other. Let me tell you about my STE, the grief and after, and the awakening and the shift within me. It took a lot of preparation, and it was over a long period. I just wanted to be on the path of awakening. And it was over a 2.5 hour meditation almost. And it went so deep that I felt my energy dispersed into stardust, like my body wasn't there anymore. And it was just such joy and such peace and bliss. It was, words can't even describe it. All I can say was that I was everywhere and anywhere all at once. Now, while this was happening during this event, from very far away, actually in Florida, my family members were there going through a crisis, and I did not know it. And I felt their cry for help, and I was instantly there. And in that time that happened, I felt myself shift, that I was physically with them. And then I felt myself comforting them. And then when I felt it had helped and it was good, I came back to my experience, and then I slowly came out of my experience. And it was incredible because the next day they spoke to me about it. And the exact time I was in my experience, they felt someone touch them who was not there. They couldn't see anyone, but they felt the touch. They felt the comfort. They felt the hug. They felt it all. And it just confirmed that I'm not going crazy. And it was incredibly profound that I wanted to share it with everyone. And the more people I spoke to about it, the more the experience to sharing and everything, the more I was rejected. And it didn't matter. Some of my spiritual friends were rejecting me, and it was really hard. And I said to myself, why am I worried about this physical world and the relationships in it? I know that I can get past this. And even though I fell into a depression because I just wanted to go back, but a big part of me said, if you go back to the stardust, you're not coming back, because I didn't want to come back. The rejection was too much. The thing that kept me from trying to experience the exact stardust again was really, I had 2 small children and I was a single mom at the time. And everything I thought I knew, I was wrong. I know nothing. I still feel that way. I know absolutely nothing because I keep learning more. And I realize that now I'm the bridge of consciousness between worlds. And it means that I was not going back to that light in the exact same way to carry me into the light, but I was carrying the light with me. And that I was now carrying it into relationships, into community. And I understood that we are all an open portal. So it's really important to know that all of us that are here now, those of us that are going to be watching this in the future, we're all an open portal.
It really is like you were, and we are, the door to God, the door to other universes, and the door to our true self even, right?
Exactly, exactly. So some of the things I did to basically tools that I used was I said a lot of mantras. I wrote love letters to myself that really made me cry a lot. I ate whole food, plant-based. I did some fasting. I did physical activities such as walking in nature, bouldering, hugging trees. I worked with alchemy. I worked with past lives. I worked with Reiki. I worked with all kinds of things to transform myself and create wellness. I spoke my truth and confronted those that had wronged me and made life a little difficult for me. And I did it with compassion and love, which is a different approach that before that I did not have. And I realized I wasn't a victim anymore. A blissful encounter in meditation revealed it was time for healing. And the path to self-realization and self-awareness, I needed to come forward and make changes if I wanted to be happy in this world. And now it's important to live in wonder, and I live in wonder. And the word wonder can change your perspective on many things, how you view the world. And it's an open door between spirit and ordinary life. You're not alone. That's the important thing to remember. And if you even knew just a microscopic amount of just how supported and loved you are in this world, you can never feel alone. To accept that you are worthy is more than half the battle. Spirit is always with you. Even from those who don't understand you, you have a community. Here, Spiritual Awakening International is also a community you can tap into, as well as Spirit itself. Let grief guide you and not define you. My sorrow has helped me understand others who have never experienced such divinity in their lives. And now I can use that to bring the love that I experienced into their world, as well as through my compassion. We need to weave light into our daily lives. Grief isn't a place to stay. It's a passage. It's a journey. It's a stage. As it may sound, like grief after awakening is trying to help you. It's pointing that something's unfinished, something sacred that wants you to become part of who you are, not just something you remember. Integration means asking, how can I live with what I've seen? Not perfectly, not all at once, but in small, ordinary, little ways in your work, in your conversations, in how you listen to others. You don't need to go back to the light. The light is asking you to go forward with you and through you. You are becoming someone who holds two worlds in one heart. And that is quite the miracle of healing.
Wow, that's really profound. If you've ever felt the ache of
Yes.
experiences, the longing, disconnection, confusion even, you're not broken. Don't think you're broken. We're becoming. This grief means that we're not actually lost. It means we've touched something so real, and the soul wants to carry it into this world from the other, bridging it together, even though this world might not actually understand. You're not alone. You're not empty. We are all full of beautiful, beautiful energy, spirit within us, and it is unfolding. So we encourage you to give yourself permission to grieve, give yourself permission to wonder, to heal, and may the light that touched you move through you quietly, steadily, softly, until others begin to see it too, and they will. So this has been Grief in an Awakening World. I'm Saul.
And I'm Natalie.
And if this presentation stirred something inside of you, if you have any questions in the 15 minutes afterwards or beyond that, a memory perhaps, or a sacred ache you would like to honor, or even if you just want to say hello, you're more than welcome to. We invite you to reach out to our safe space, confidential space. If you know anybody else who is experiencing anything like that, scan the QR code and you can save our contact inside as well. And really remember, you don't leave your space behind when you come back, you become it. So thanks for watching and participating with us.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
So much beautiful, beautiful content, and I'm sure people will have questions for you guys. All right. So our next speaker is Leena Zafary. She is a speaker, a transformation facilitator, and founder of IANS Las Vegas, dedicated to exploring the after effects of near-death experiences and spiritually transformative experiences. Her life changed profoundly following an NDE in 2014, which led to a spontaneous STE 3 years later, awakening her to the vibrational nature of existence. These experiences sparked a decade-long journey of self-discovery and healing, culminating in her passion for helping others embrace their spiritual awakening. And I'd like to introduce you to Leena. Welcome, Leena.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Delighted to be here. I want to thank everybody for being here from all over the world. The energy in the space is incredible. Dr. Kaysan, thank you. SAI team, thank you for this opportunity for all of us to share, because there's so much wisdom being shared here. And what everybody has shared before me, it has literally set the stage for what I'm about to share with you today as well. So I want to say thank you. Well, my name is Leena Zafary, and today I will be sharing some lessons and some gifts from my spiritually transformative experience and the awakening to the vibrational self. So I can make my, I don't think I need to define what an STE or an NDE is, because we've had such incredible explanation of what it is on every stage and every level. But as Saul had just so perfectly used words that resonate deeply with every part of my experience, I just want to say that yes, it is a mystical experience. Be positive, distressing, but at the end of the day, it does awaken a deep connection with the universal energy and the inner truth that we come with, and expands our consciousness. And the way just yesterday I was thinking about it was, I felt like when I had my experience, I was trying to fit back into a smaller set of clothes, I guess, back into my clothes and not fitting back into it, if anybody's had that experience. But it is most definitely a single moment that can illuminate and transform the entire lifetime. So I want to talk a little bit about my experience. I was born in a, I want to say, NDE-like experience. But my entire life has been sprinkled with experiences that I chalked off as, oh, it's just a dream, it's my imagination. And in 2014, I had a near-death experience that I could not explain away, because, and yet I still did, but in 2014, I got sick, common cold, and it landed me in the hospital. And after 9 days and 5 of them in the ICU, my medical team, I guess, called it a bilateral pulmonary infiltrate. Basically what it meant is I lost both lungs. I was on breathing machines and literally going to the other side. But I had a spontaneous, just miraculous healing. I woke up fully healed, completely healed in my body, and I went home. The only thing is the hospital, my doctors, and neither my family knew what happened, and nobody explained to me. And so for 3 years, I walked around clueless, transformed beyond words, but clueless, thinking I was completely alone. So the universe pulled me in 2017. And what was meant to be just a fun outing with cousins on a holiday trip turned out to be a spontaneous, spiritually transformative experience in a float tank, also known as a sensory deprivation tank. And essentially what happened was the experience I had was ineffable, because I went back into that same portal that I was in 2014, and I actually went through a tunnel and experienced both life here on the other side. And I came back so transformed that there was absolutely no words. And up until this moment, I had absolutely no religious views. I had no spiritual knowledge, terminology, experience. I was not on any path that you could say that I was trying to get to understanding. It was just a spontaneous boom, and it completely knocked my socks off. And what happened was I awakened with new purposes, this need to understand and to embody and integrate that feeling of what I experienced, to bring that back, that urge. Oh my God, that calling, it's so profound that you can't hear nothing else. And so began my journey of self-actualization and answering to new purposes and the call to serve others. But those calls don't come very clear. It's not, because before you can get to that, there's that grief, that pain, that feeling of complete, what the hell just happened, excuse my French, but yeah, identity shifts. I was so lost, so confused, not knowing anything. Energetically, I was so sensitive. I came back with my clairs all opening up, but me not even being aware of the terminology of clairs and what they are and what they mean. So you can only imagine the emotional overwhelm I was under. My life outside was perfect. Inside, I was breaking down. Everything in my life fell apart. Patterns, everything, relationships, my marriage ended. I moved from state to state. The misunderstandings that followed brought me into isolation. And wow, what a gift that was, because it was actually in that isolation that allowed me to breathe and to reconnect and to remember what I saw and I felt. And this heightened intuition, you know, there's this clear knowing that shows up when we take the time to align and go back to that energy. So much happens. There's this deep compassion, deep understanding, most of all, clarity of purpose. Not all my purposes were clear at the beginning. As I was ready for each purpose, they just appeared. And the first purpose that I had the conscious awareness is that I was here to be a mom, because it was my children who brought me back. And the only thing I knew what to do and how to do was attend to that purpose. And in doing so, God just did, the spiritual connection just heightened. And I was just refilled and refueled. And I was divinely guided. You know, my life just started to make sense. And I understood the vibrational nature of existence. When I heard Nikola Tesla talk about, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Wow, that hit me, because I understood it. I understood it because in that space of isolation and incubation, I read great minds, from David R. Hawkins to Stuart Wilde. And then, of course, my guide here on earth is this incredible woman named Sherry Edwards, who really helped me understand and ground everything from there to here. And through her, I learned that, well, through all of it, is that nothing rests. Everything vibrates. And at the most fundamental level, we are a vibration. And with that, I came to the understanding that although we are a spark of the divine, we are here on earth, dressed up in a sacred biochemical garment called the body. Just like an instrument, this body also plays our soul's music through our voice. So we are a vibrational instrument that when we align and we find vibrational alignment and we tune in to our own guidance in ourselves and that connection, we become like an instrument. We play beautiful music. We become harmonious to the world around us. And just like there's no two fingerprints, the sound of your voice is just as unique. And what I learned and I understood and now I embody is that our every thought, our every emotion, every word that we speak, it creates the vibrational frequency at which we vibrate, not to the external world, but the vibration of our inner soul. And the universe, well, that responds to that frequency, not our desires or needs, but to the frequency that we create by our thoughts, emotions, and the words that we speak. So for me, misalignment showed up and I realized, well, how can we tell if we are aligned, where we are misaligned? How do we find alignment? Where do you start? Well, misalignment as well as alignment shows up the same. It shows up in our mind, shows up in our body, and it shows up in our soul. When
Leena, I'm sorry, we have about 1 more minute, okay?
Great, thank you. So misalignment shows up in the body, and alignment also shows up as flow, fulfillment, and vibrational integrity. Now, all of that aside, my favorite one is when we are in alignment, we make a decision from wisdom and love and not from fear. Misalignment, we often make our decisions from fear. And the journey to vibrational alignment starts right from where you are. And it starts with being conscious, because your body is your frequency tuner. And we can use it consciously through our sight, through our hearing, through our smell, taste, touch. All of these senses is input and export. And it helps us stay and find alignment. How we think affects how we feel. How we feel is the state of our vibration. And that is from where we create. Our internal and external conditions are a match to that vibration. So my invitation to you is come back into alignment, reflect, remember who you are, and trust that you are exactly where you need to be to rise. And I have IONS Las Vegas as a place where I hold free sharing groups. It's to find meaning, community, and healing. It's to integrate spiritual insights into daily life, because every story that is shared is a light turned on into someone else's darkness. And it was through everybody else's stories that I found my light. So the intention is to share light. And as founder of MBS Alignment Center, it's where I offer energy frequency attunement, Reiki, emotion code. Each session is sacred space for healing, clarity, and expansion. And I want to thank you. But before I leave, I want to tell you, I have shared my story, my NDE, and my miraculous healing in this new book called The Ways of God. I'm a co-author, and I'm so excited that this book is going to be shared. And to contact me or connect with me, here are some of my links. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to share this information. And I want to leave you with, you are never too far from alignments. It's just one breath away, one truth away, and one shift away. And I want to thank you.
Thank you, Leena. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for that beautiful share. All right, so now we have some time for some Q&A, and I know that people put some questions in the chat, so I'm just going to a lot of really positive feedback for all of the speakers, really appreciative. And for Leena, what are some additional strategies that support integration after your STE? And are there some things that you avoid because of your sensitivities?
Wow, yes. So being sensitive, you kind of learn to go with your feelings and tune in. I'm very much aware of everything I do. I'm conscious, and I know, although it sounds very selfish, but I think I learned that self-care and self-love starts there, because everything I do in life is very conscious, from everything I eat, everything I listen to, everything I read, everything I choose to spend my time and attention on is what affects me. So I'm very, very aware of all that. And for me, I follow that. And the biggest thing for me is perspective shift. I learned that having these experiences don't make your problems go away, but it just helps you be in it in a different capacity, in a different way. And I learned and I realized that it's not my life circumstances and issues that I have to change, but it's how I view them, and it's how I see them, and it's how I choose to feel and be and do as I'm in it. So that's some of the things I do.
Um, that's a great way to look at things. Okay, now we have a question for Saul and Natalie. So there's some question about some unacknowledged grief and about how to acknowledge the grief from childhood trauma. So what would you say to somebody that has a lot of grief from childhood trauma, and how to work on that?
I'd like to start with that, and Saul can continue. I have some very horrible life trauma as a child, and it wasn't. It was something that me and my sister went through together, and it was very hard to deal with. That I blocked it out. Even at a very young age, I was able to pop in and out of reality very quickly, and I would pop out in order to avoid pain and suffering, and then pop back in. And so, because of it, I was able to avoid actually remembering it for the longest time. And then, as I started to work on myself through past life regression, through Reiki, through meditation, through change of diet, through mantra, through all these things, I slowly started to heal and change the way I viewed the world. And as I did this, and my perspective and the way I saw the world, no longer as a victim, but I started to see the world as someone, as an observer. So that being said, I'm going to let Saul take over now.
Okay.
So, is that okay?
Yes, yes.
So first off, I'd like to say thank you for opening up to even the idea that you have this unacknowledged grief, because now you've just acknowledged it. So that's step number one.
Yeah.
You've entered into a community that is open and willing to listen and to understand in our way your experience as you deliver it. So that is actually one of the first steps, is being able to open into a community that is willing to listen to you and be open to understand. The next thing is that, as we mentioned, one of the things about unacknowledged grief, especially something like this, is, as I mentioned in the slides, it's hard to name. So how do we put a name to something we don't even understand what we're experiencing? So by talking about it, by expressing it as I would say, something that happened to you, not how you are. So, the experiences you don't become your experience. You experience it. So because you are not the experience, you can separate yourself from that experience itself. One of the ways to help your healing is by understanding that you are not that experience. You had that experience. So separating it allows you to give it a name, allows you to isolate it, and allows others to kind of communicate with you in that as well. And um, as you talk about it, if you come into situations where there are others, for example, who say, oh, it was nothing, or don't worry about it, or how come you haven't gotten over it yet? We have to remember, grief isn't something we get over. We negotiate with it. We walk with it. It is now a part of our new life because it is an experience that has created who we are right now. And we have to walk in our everyday knowing it's not something to run away from. It's something we walk with, but it's not something we tuck away. And I wouldn't say it's not something to say, well, I'm proud of what happened, but you say, yes, this happened to me. And it is with me now, and this is how I view the world now because of this. But as I mentioned, when we walk separately from that experience, we are able to really reveal inside of us our true self. And that's a really key component. Separate the grief outside of you, the true self will begin to shine, and you'll be able to isolate and begin this healing process. It never will go away permanently, but you will learn to walk with it.
And I would just want to add to that, to what Saul said, is that he's been working on a book, and so I'm his test person for this book, and it's actually helped do the final steps of releasing everything of my childhood pain. So just wanted to add that.
Okay, thank you. All right, now I have a question from somebody in the chat to Wendy. And the question is, how do you discern between I'm sorry. Okay. Have you run into harmful ghosts? And if so, how do you deal with them? And also, how do you discern between a ghost from the past or a ghost that was you and a regular ghost?
So two separate questions. So I personally don't believe ghosts can be harmful because they don't have a body. That said, if you don't feel comfortable with the ghost or don't feel comfortable with what to do to help them, simply call in their guides, call in God, call in the angels, call in whoever you believe in that could be helpful to them and help lift them up. But again, it's their free will choice what they're going to do. So that's my take on that. And then the other question, what's the distinction between, is it a random ghost, so to speak, that you don't know or didn't have any association with, or could it actually be literally you, like in my case, where I was going, oh, that's not a thing. Well, yes, it is a thing. It's by the level of emotion is the way you're going to know. And it's just remarkable, the emotion that you'll feel if that ghost was potentially you in that past life. And you don't have to get all the details like I did, 175 pages. Normally it's not chapter and verse like that, but it's just it's something that comes up for a fair number of my clients. If we're doing a past life release and learning about their past life and what energies have come forward that are either not serving them now or could be incredibly helpful right now. Because past lives, it's not the doom and gloom report. There can be amazing things we've worked on before that we're now perfecting, and doing more of and finishing up. So it's just working through that.
Awesome. And I just have a quick question for you. Do you see a lot of people that experience similar things that you've experienced, where you're actually having communication with a ghost that was yourself in a prior life?
Yes.
You are
It's
meeting people like
It's
that.
a fantastic question. I think past life regressionists attract the clients that they're going to know how to help.
Right, right. Exactly.
So I think I see a disproportionate, because I have colleagues and they're like, I've never heard of that, dealt with that. That's just, not something I need to do. Whereas I might have perhaps, 15 to 20% of people, when we're working through the past life and figuring out what was going on with it, I always ask their higher self and ask their guides, have they crossed over to the light? It's just that simple. And if we get the no, it's like, great, then can we do that now?
Awesome.
Just discovering, because that attachment, that's what's holding them back.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And I have one more question for Dr. Liu, and we'll be ending our panel discussion with this final question. Dr. Liu, how optimistic are you that STEs and NDEs will be recognized in the near future in the psychiatric and medical field as valid and real and not mental illness?
Well, the glass is always half empty and half full. I must say that 30 years ago, we did get religious or spiritual problem in the DSM to help us with that differential diagnosis of distressing experiences involving religion or spirituality, which are not part of a mental disorder. So that's where the glass is half full. And it's an ongoing struggle to move in this direction. I feel very positive that the culture has, in general, embraced a greater awareness of these kinds of issues. I mean, Spiritual Awakenings International itself has been a tremendous phenomenon to help move this forward. As to the profession, I think it will take ongoing effort. But I'm glad to say that the American Psychiatric Association, I think, is moving in that direction. I really would advise you to Google APA Psychiatry Religion to look at that resource document from 2021 coming from the Ethics Committee of the APA. I think that's a tremendous advance. So it's moving forward. We're moving forward. Thank you.
We are. And thank you. And thank you, everybody on this panel. It was a wonderful, wonderful panel. And we just loved all of your presentations, all of your wisdom, and all of your dedication to people that are having all kinds of spiritually transformative experiences. So thank you so much, and bless all of you.